The doctors were supposed to be the best money could buy. Jasmine Carter watched them cluster around the hospital bed like expensive vultures, their white coats crisp, their credentials impressive, their confidence absolute. They spoke in measured tones about viral infections and compromised immune systems, about running more tests and adjusting medications, about patience and time. Meanwhile, 6-year-old Marcus Delacroix was dying. Jasmine could see it in the gray pallor of his skin, in the way his small chest rose and fell with increasing difficulty, in the bluish tint creeping across his lips. She'd seen it before during her pediatric nursing rotations, back when she still had a career instead of a survival job. Back before her nursing license was suspended for speaking up about unsafe staffing ratios. Back before she became just another black woman invisible in a white marble mansion. "Miss Carter." Dr. Whitmore barely glanced at her, his tone dismissive. "You can wait outside. We're conducting an examination." Jasmine didn't move from her position near the window. She'd been Marcus's nanny for exactly 3 months, hired through an agency that specialized in placing discreet household staff for New York's elite. The job description hadn't mentioned that her employer was Dante Delacroix, one of the most feared men in the city. It hadn't mentioned that his sprawling penthouse doubled as a fortress, or that armed men patrolled the halls, or that every conversation could be a matter of life or death. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. What the job description had mentioned was health insurance and a salary that could finally help her support her grandmother. What it hadn't prepared her for was watching a child slip away while doctors with Harvard degrees missed what any competent nurse could see. "His oxygen saturation is dropping," one of the residents said, checking the monitors. "Increase the flow rate," Dr. Whitmore ordered. "And let's get another chest X-ray." Jasmine's hands clenched at her sides. Another X-ray. More waiting. More tests while Marcus's breathing grew shallower by the minute. She moved closer to the bed, ignoring the annoyed looks from the medical team. Marcus's eyes were half closed, his small body too still. She touched his forehead, burning hot, then checked his hands. Cold and clammy. The mottling on his skin was spreading. Classic signs of septic shock. "Dr. Whitmore," Jasmine said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Has anyone checked for meningococcemia?" The doctor turned to her with barely concealed irritation. "Miss Carter, I appreciate your concern, but we're handling this. If you could please look at his hands." Jasmine pulled back the blanket, revealing the purplish-red rash spreading across Marcus's palms. "And his feet. That's not a viral rash. That's purpura. He has signs of septic shock, and if it's meningococcal sepsis, he has maybe 30 minutes before. That's enough." Dr. Whitmore's voice hardened. "You're a nanny, not a medical professional. We've already ruled out bacterial meningitis." His lumbar puncture was clear. "A lumbar puncture can be falsely negative in early meningococcal disease," Jasmine shot back, her professional training overriding every instinct to stay quiet and invisible. Especially if antibiotics were started before the tap. Was he given anything prophylactically? The resident's face went pale. The paramedics gave him ceftriaxone in the ambulance as a precaution, which could have partially treated the infection but not cleared it. Jasmine's voice rose. "He needs blood cultures now, not in an hour. He needs aggressive 4 antibiotics, fluid resuscitation, and vasopressors if his pressure drops any further. And he needs them immediately or he's going to get out." Dr. Whitmore pointed toward the door. "Security will escort you from the building." The room fell silent except for the steady beep of monitors and Marcus's labored breathing. Jasmine stood frozen, torn between professional knowledge and survival instinct. She was just the nanny. Just the help. Just another black woman who should know her place. But Marcus was dying. The door opened before security could arrive. Dante Delacroix filled the doorway, 6'4" of controlled danger wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Jasmine's annual salary. His presence changed the atmosphere instantly. The doctors straightened, the nurses stepped back, even the machines seemed to beep more quietly. Jasmine had met Dante exactly twice since starting this job. Once during her initial interview, where his dark eyes had assessed her with unsettling intensity. Once 3 weeks later, when he'd returned from a business trip and asked how Marcus was adjusting to his new nanny. Both times, she'd kept her responses brief and professional, acutely aware of the danger radiating from this man like heat from a furnace. Now those dark eyes swept the room, taking in the cluster of doctors, the monitors showing declining vital signs, his son's deteriorating condition. When his gaze landed on Jasmine, still standing defiantly beside Marcus's bed, something flickered in his expression. "What's happening?" His voice was quiet, controlled, absolutely terrifying. Dr. Whitmore stepped forward immediately. "Mr. Delacroix, we're running additional tests to determine the exact." "Not you." Dante's eyes never left Jasmine. "Huh. What's happening to my son?" The question hung in the air. Every person in the room understood the weight of this moment. Dante Delacroix didn't ask questions twice. He demanded truth, and those who failed to provide it rarely got a second chance. Jasmine met his gaze directly. "Marcus has meningococcal sepsis. The rash on his hands and feet is purpura, broken blood vessels from the bacteria attacking his bloodstream. His organs are starting to shut down. Without immediate treatment, he'll go into septic shock, and his survival rate drops to less than 30%. "That's speculation," Dr. Whitmore interjected. "We have no confirmed diagnosis." "How long?" Dante asked Jasmine, ignoring the doctor completely. "If I'm right? 20 minutes, maybe less. The bacteria moves fast." "And if you're wrong?" Jasmine's throat tightened. If she was wrong, she'd just destroyed what little credibility she had. If she was wrong, she'd be fired, blacklisted, unable to find work in any household in the city. But if she was right and said nothing, Marcus would die. "I'm not wrong," she said quietly. Dante stared at her for 3 heartbeats. Then he turned to Dr. Whitmore. "Do exactly what she says. Now." "Mr. Delacroix, I must protest." "Now." The single word carried the weight of absolute authority. "Or I'll find doctors who will." The transformation was immediate. Dr. Whitmore barked orders. Nurses scrambled. Blood cultures were drawn. 4 antibiotics were prepared and pushed. Fluid resuscitation began. Jasmine found herself pulled into the organized chaos, her hands moving with muscle memory as she helped position Marcus for better vascular access, as she called out vital signs, as she fell back into the rhythm of emergency medicine like she'd never left. 27 minutes later, Marcus's color began to improve. His oxygen saturation climbed. His breathing steadied. The doctors would later take credit for the diagnosis. The charts would reflect their clinical judgment and prompt intervention. But everyone in that room knew the truth. The nanny had saved the boss's son. Jasmine stood against the wall as the medical team stabilized Marcus, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She'd done it. She'd broken every rule about staying invisible, about keeping quiet, about knowing her place. And somehow, miraculously, it had worked. "Miss Carter." She looked up to find Dante standing before her. Up close, she could see the exhaustion in his face, the fear he'd hidden so carefully during the crisis. His expensive suit couldn't disguise the tension in his shoulders or the way his hands were clenched at his sides. "Come with me," he said quietly. This was it. He was going to fire her somewhere private, away from the medical staff. Maybe worse, depending on how angry he was about her undermining his expensive doctors in front of witnesses. Jasmine followed him into the hospital hallway, then into a small private consultation room. Dante closed the door and turned to face her. "How did you know?" he asked. The question surprised her. She'd expected anger, accusations, maybe threats. Not curiosity. "I was a nurse," Jasmine said carefully. "Pediatric ICU. I did a rotation in infectious disease. Meningococcal sepsis presents fast and kills faster. Once you've seen it, you don't forget." "Was a nurse," Dante repeated. "What happened?" Jasmine hesitated. This wasn't a conversation she wanted to have with her employer, especially not this employer. But his expression made it clear he expected an answer. "I worked at Presbyterian Hospital. The administration kept cutting nursing staff to save money, even though it meant unsafe patient ratios. I reported it multiple times. Eventually, I went to the state board." She lifted her chin, refusing to be ashamed. "The hospital retaliated. They filed a complaint claiming I'd made medication errors due to incompetence. It wasn't true, but the investigation took 18 months. By the time I was cleared, my license had been suspended, my reputation was destroyed, and no hospital would hire me. So you became a nanny." "I became whatever would pay my grandmother's medical bills." Dante studied her for a long moment. "You saved my son's life." "I did my job. The job I was trained to do." "The doctors would have let him die." The doctors were following protocol, Jasmine said, though the words tasted bitter. Sometimes protocol isn't enough.
No.
Dante moved closer, and Jasmine's pulse quickened for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Sometimes it takes someone willing to break the rules. Someone who sees what others miss because they are too concerned with their own authority to listen. He pulled out his phone and made a call, speaking rapidly in a language Jasmine didn't recognize. Italian, maybe, or something close. When he hung up, his expression had shifted into something that looked almost like respect. Your nursing license will be reinstated within 30 days, he said. The hospital that blacklisted you will issue a formal apology and clear your record. You'll receive compensation for the income you lost during the suspension.
Jasmine's mouth went dry. I don't understand.
I have resources. Lawyers who specialize in medical board complaints. Investigators who can prove the hospital's retaliation. People who owe me favors. Dante's smile was cold. Consider it payment for what you did today.
I don't need payment. I
know what you need.
He cut her off gently. Health insurance for your grandmother. Fair wages. Respect. You'll have all of that.
Tears burned behind Jasmine's eyes. She'd spent 2 years fighting, scraping, surviving. 2 years of being invisible, of swallowing her professional pride, of watching her expertise go to waste. And now this dangerous man was offering to fix it all with a phone call.
Why? She whispered.
Why would you do this for me? Dante's expression softened in a way that transformed his entire face.
Because you didn't hesitate.
When every trained physician in that room dismissed you, when your career was on the line, when you had every reason to stay quiet, you spoke up anyway. You fought for my son when no one else would.
He paused.
That kind of courage deserves to be rewarded, not punished. Before Jasmine could respond, his phone buzzed.
He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened.
I have to handle something, he said. But Marcus's case will be transferred to the best infectious disease specialists in the country. And you'll continue as his nanny, unless you'd prefer to return to nursing full-time once your license is restored.
Jasmine thought about that.
Thought about going back to hospital shifts, about working under administrators who valued profit over patients, about fighting the same battles that had cost her everything the first time. Then she thought about Marcus, about the way he'd laughed that morning at breakfast, about how he'd asked her to read him 3 extra chapters of his favorite book before bed last night.
Can I do both? She asked.
Nanny during the day, nursing on weekends or evenings.
Dante's smile was genuine this time.
You can do whatever you want, Miss Carter.
You've earned that right.
He left without another word, and Jasmine stood alone in the consultation room, trying to process everything that had just happened. Her hands were still shaking. Her scrubs, she'd changed into them automatically during the emergency, were stained with Marcus's blood from the 4 insertion.
She'd saved a child's life.
She'd stood up to doctors who'd tried to silence her.
She'd broken every rule about staying invisible.
And somehow, impossibly, she'd survived it. 2 weeks after the hospital, Jasmine stood in Marcus's bedroom watching him build an elaborate Lego castle. The infectious disease specialists had confirmed her diagnosis, meningococcal sepsis, caught just in time. Another 10 minutes and the outcome would have been very different. Marcus had been home for a week, still recovering but improving daily. The purplish rash had faded to yellowish bruises. His energy was returning in bursts, 20 minutes of intense play followed by sudden exhaustion that sent him back to bed. Miss Jasmine? Marcus looked up from his construction project, his dark eyes so much like his father's.
Can we make the tower taller?
I think your tower is already pretty impressive, Jasmine said, settling onto the floor beside him. But we can try if you want. She'd learned over the past 3 months that Marcus was unusually perceptive for a 6-year-old. He noticed things, when she was tired, when she was worried, when she was forcing a smile. His mother had died when he was 2, leaving Dante to raise him alone in a world of violence and secrets. Daddy says you saved my life, Marcus said, carefully placing another Lego brick.
Jasmine's hands stilled.
I helped the doctors figure out what was wrong.
No. Marcus turned to face her fully. He said you're a hero.
That you were the only one who knew what to do. The word hero felt too big, too heavy. Jasmine had just done what any competent nurse would do. But she'd learned not to argue with Marcus when he got that serious expression on his face. Well, she said carefully, I'm just glad you're feeling better.
Me too.
I don't want to go back to the hospital.
He returned to his castle, but his small hands trembled slightly. It was scary.
Jasmine's heart clenched.
She moved closer, wrapping an arm around his thin shoulders.
I know it was. But you were so brave. The doctors were all really impressed.
Were you scared? The question caught her off guard.
Adults didn't usually admit fear to children. It felt like a violation of some unspoken rule about maintaining authority and composure. But Marcus was watching her with those two old eyes, and Jasmine found herself answering honestly. Yes, she said softly.
I was terrified.
But sometimes being brave means doing the right thing even when you're scared. Marcus leaned against her, his small body warm and solid. Is that why you yelled at the doctors?
I didn't yell.
Jasmine stopped. She had yelled, hadn't she? Had broken every rule about deference and knowing her place because Marcus's life mattered more than her comfort.
Yeah.
I guess it is. They sat like that for several minutes, Marcus building and Jasmine providing structural support and encouragement. The afternoon sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, making the polished hardwood floors glow. Outside, the city stretched endlessly in all directions, a kingdom of steel and glass that Dante Delacroix ruled from his penthouse throne. Miss Jasmine?
Marcus's voice was smaller now, uncertain.
Are you going to leave?
What? No, of course not.
Why would you think? The other nannies always left.
6 of them since Mama died.
Daddy says it's because I'm difficult.
He wouldn't meet her eyes.
But I try to be good. I really do.
Jasmine felt something crack open in her chest.
She turned Marcus to face her, hands gentle on his shoulders.
Marcus, look at me. You are not difficult.
You're a wonderful, smart, brave kid. If those other nannies left, it wasn't because of you. Then why? How did you explain to a 6-year-old that some people couldn't handle working for a man like Dante Delacroix? That the armed guards and encrypted phones and sudden late-night meetings scared them away? That the danger inherent in this world made most people run as fast as they could? Sometimes grown-ups make choices for complicated reasons, Jasmine said.
But I promise you, I'm not going anywhere. You're stuck with me. Marcus's smile was brilliant and heartbreaking.
He threw his arms around her neck, hugging her with the fierce intensity only children could manage.
Good.
I like you best anyway. I like you too, buddy.
The moment was interrupted by a knock on the door.
Dante stood in the doorway, still wearing his suit from whatever business had occupied him today. His tie was loosened, his jacket gone, and exhaustion shadowed his features.
How's the patient? He asked.
Building architectural marvels, Jasmine said, gesturing to the Lego castle. And getting tired, even though he won't admit it. I'm not, Marcus protested, even as he yawned. Dante's expression softened in a way Jasmine had only seen a handful of times, a transformation that made him look younger, less dangerous, almost vulnerable.
Why don't you show me what you built?
Then maybe a nap before dinner. Naps are for babies. Naps are for people who were very sick and need rest to get strong again. Dante moved into the room with surprising grace for such a large man. He crouched beside the castle, examining it with genuine interest.
This is impressive work.
Is this tower structurally sound? Marcus launched into an enthusiastic explanation of his building techniques. Jasmine stood, intending to give them privacy, but Dante's voice stopped her. Stay, please. It wasn't a command exactly, but it wasn't quite a request either. Jasmine settled back onto the floor, watching father and son discuss Lego architecture with a seriousness that would have been comical in any other context. This was the Dante Delacroix most people never saw. The devoted father who made time for his son despite running a criminal empire. The man who listened patiently to 6-year-old building strategies and praised structural integrity like he was reviewing blueprints for a skyscraper. After 20 minutes, Marcus's yawns became too frequent to ignore. Dante scooped him up effortlessly. Nap time, architect.
But I'm not tired. I know.
You're just resting your eyes while I carry you to bed.
Marcus was asleep before they reached his bedroom door.
Dante laid him down gently, pulling the blankets up and pressing a kiss to his forehead. When he turned back to Jasmine, his expression had shifted, still soft, but weighted with something heavier. We need to talk, he said quietly. My office. 10 minutes. Jasmine's stomach tightened. Those words never meant anything good. She waited until Dante left, checked that Marcus was sleeping peacefully, then made her way through the penthouse to Dante's private office. The space was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined with volumes in multiple languages. A massive desk dominated the room, its surface clear except for a single laptop and a crystal tumbler of whiskey. The windows behind the desk overlooked Central Park, the trees just beginning to turn autumn colors. Dante stood at those windows, hands in his pockets, shoulders tense. He didn't turn when Jasmine entered. "Close the door," he said. She did, her heart hammering. This was it, the moment when everything fell apart. He was going to tell her that saving Marcus had been wonderful, but she'd embarrassed him in front of his expensive doctors, and he couldn't have staff who caused scenes. Or maybe he'd discovered something about her past that made her unsuitable. Or someone tried to kill Marcus. The words hit Jasmine like a physical blow. She gripped the back of the nearest chair to steady herself. What? The meningococcal infection. Dante turned to face her, and his expression was carved from stone.
My people investigated. It wasn't natural.
Someone introduced the bacteria deliberately, probably through contaminated food or drink. They knew Marcus's immune system was slightly compromised from a cold last month. They were counting on the infection moving fast enough that even good doctors would miss it.
The room tilted.
Someone poisoned him. Someone tried to murder my 6-year-old son. Dante's voice was absolutely controlled, which somehow made it more terrifying. And they nearly succeeded. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Jasmine's mind raced. Who would? I have enemies. Rivals who want to weaken my position. People who think killing my son is an acceptable strategy.
His hands curled into fists. I've spent 2 weeks tracking down the source.
We found the contamination point, a catered meal delivered 3 days before Marcus got sick. The company that provided it doesn't exist anymore. The careful way he said doesn't exist made Jasmine's blood run cold. The people responsible are being handled, Dante continued.
But this changes everything. Someone got close enough to Marcus to poison him. That means my security has weaknesses. My household has vulnerabilities.
And until I identify every gap, Marcus is at risk. What does that mean? Jasmine asked, though she had a sinking feeling she already knew. It means increased security. No more trips to the park or playdates without a full protective detail. It means I need to know exactly who has access to Marcus at all times. Dante moved closer, and Jasmine fought the urge to step back. And it means I need someone I can trust absolutely to keep him safe. You have bodyguards, security teams, who failed to prevent contaminated food from entering my home.
His jaw tightened.
I've rebuilt my entire security structure from the ground up. New personnel, new protocols, new surveillance systems. But guards can protect him from physical threats. They can't protect him from poison in his juice box or bacteria in his lunch. Understanding dawned. You want me to, what? Taste his food first.
I want you to be more than his nanny.
Dante pulled a folder from his desk and handed it to her. I want you to be his primary medical overseer. You'll review everything he eats, every medication, every vitamin.
You'll supervise his care completely.
And in exchange. Jasmine opened the folder. Inside was a contract offering a salary 3 times what she currently made, plus comprehensive benefits, housing in a secure building, a personal security detail, and a signing bonus that made her head spin.
This is too much, she whispered. It's what you're worth.
What Marcus needs. Dante's expression was intense. You saved his life once by seeing what others missed.
I'm asking you to do it again. Every day.
For as long as it takes to eliminate the threat.
Jasmine stared at the contract.
The money would change her life, pay off her grandmother's medical bills, cover the rest of her degree if she wanted to finish it, provide security she'd never had. But it also meant deeper involvement in Dante's world. Meant accepting that Marcus's life was constantly at risk. Meant becoming part of a system built on violence and fear. I need time to think, she said. You have until tomorrow morning.
Dante returned to the windows. I won't force you, Jasmine.
But understand that refusing means leaving this household. I can't risk having someone close to Marcus who isn't fully committed to his protection. It's nothing personal, just necessary.
In other words, accept the job or be fired. Not much of a choice. Jasmine clutched the folder against her chest. Can I ask you something?
Anything. Why me? You could hire professional security experts, former special forces soldiers, people trained in executive protection. Why a nurse who just got her license back? Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that suggested old pain, carefully contained.
Because Marcus trusts you.
Because when he's scared, he asks for you. Because in 3 months, you've done what 6 other nannies couldn't do in 2 years, you've made him feel safe. Dante turned to face her. And because when my son was dying, you were the only person in that room who saw him as a child who needed saving, not a problem to be solved or a liability to be managed. That's worth more than any tactical training.
The honesty in his words struck something deep in Jasmine's chest.
She thought about Marcus's question earlier, "Are you going to leave?" and the fear behind it.
She thought about his brilliant smile when she'd promised to stay.
"I'll do it," she heard herself say. "I'll keep him safe." Relief flashed across Dante's features before he mastered it.
"Thank you.
But I have conditions."
His eyebrow rose.
"Go on." "I make all final decisions about Marcus's medical care."
"No arguments, no second-guessing. If I say he needs something, it happens." "Agreed."
"And I need to know what threats we're dealing with. I can't protect him if I don't understand the danger." Dante hesitated. This was asking him to pull back the curtain on his world, to show her the machinery of violence that kept his empire running. Most people in his life probably never got that kind of access.
"All right," he said finally. "I'll brief you on active threats weekly.
But understand that some information will be disturbing." "I can handle disturbing." "Can you handle knowing that people want Marcus dead specifically to hurt me?
That his existence makes him a target?
That keeping him alive means accepting that he'll never have a normal childhood?" The questions hung heavy in the air.
Jasmine thought about her answer carefully. "No child in your world has a normal childhood," she said quietly. "But that doesn't mean they can't have a good one.
Marcus deserves to feel safe and loved and valued. He deserves to build Lego castles and laugh at stupid jokes and not spend every moment afraid."
She met Dante's eyes. "I can't give him normal, but I can give him that."
Something in Dante's expression cracked, just for a second, just enough for Jasmine to see the desperate father beneath the dangerous boss.
"That's all I want for him."
They stood there in the fading afternoon light, 2 people bound by their shared determination to protect one small boy from a world determined to destroy him. "I'll have legal send over the final contract tonight," Dante said, his professional mask sliding back into place. "You'll start officially tomorrow. I'm having quarters prepared for you here in the penthouse. I need to stay with my grandmother. Your grandmother will be moved to a secure facility with around-the-clock medical care. The best in the city.
At my expense."
Jasmine opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Her grandmother needed that level of care, had needed it for months, but Jasmine's budget couldn't stretch that far. Pride wanted her to refuse. Practicality and love for her grandmother won. "Thank you," she said softly.
"Don't thank me.
You're earning it." Dante walked back to his desk and pulled out another folder. "This contains information about the 3 families currently posing the most significant threats. Read it tonight."
Mima eyes faces.
"Tomorrow, we'll discuss security protocols." Jasmine took the folder with shaking hands. The weight of what she'd just agreed to settled over her like a lead blanket. As she turned to leave, Dante's voice stopped her. "Jasmine."
She looked back.
"I meant what I said in the hospital."
"You have courage. Don't lose that."
The next morning, Jasmine woke in her new quarters, a suite in the penthouse's private wing with a bedroom, bathroom, and small sitting area. The furniture was expensive and impersonal.
The view overlooked the park.
Everything smelled like money and danger. She'd spent half the night reading the threat assessment files. 3 families wanted Dante dead or diminished. The Castellanos, a rival organization that had been fighting Dante for territory in the Bronx for 2 years. Led by Victor Castellano, a man whose file included photos of his previous enemies.
None of them were alive.
The Russians, specifically the Volkov Bratva, run by a woman named Katia Volkov who'd built her reputation on ruthlessness and strategic brilliance. The file suggested she saw Marcus as acceptable collateral damage. The Morettis, an old guard family that believed Dante had risen too far too fast. They wanted him gone and his territory redistributed among more deserving people. Any one of these groups could have orchestrated Marcus's poisoning.
All 3 had the resources and motivation.
Jasmine dressed carefully. Professional but practical clothes, comfortable shoes, her nursing badge clipped visibly to her shirt.
A reminder of who she was beneath the new title and inflated salary.
Marcus was already awake when she entered his room, building something complex with Lego bricks.
He looked up and smiled. "Miss Jasmine.
You're here early."
I live here now, remember? We talked about it yesterday.
"I know, but I thought maybe you'd change your mind." The vulnerability in his voice broke her heart. The other nannies always said they were staying, but then they left anyway. Jasmine crouched beside him, taking his small hands in hers. "Marcus, I want you to understand something very important.
I'm not just your nanny anymore.
I'm your friend and your protector. My job is to keep you healthy and safe and happy. And I take my job very seriously. Because of the bad people who made me sick."
Smart kid. Too smart.
"Yes," Jasmine said honestly.
"But also because I care about you.
You're important to me, not just as a job, but as a person." Marcus studied her face with that unnerving intensity.
Then he threw his arms around her neck.
"I'm glad you're staying." "Me too, buddy." They spent the morning doing normal things: breakfast, lessons with Marcus's tutor, an hour of outdoor play on the penthouse's private terrace, surrounded by guards Jasmine tried not to think about.
But everything felt different now. Every meal she examined for tampering.
Every drink she tested first. Every person who approached Marcus got assessed as a potential threat. By noon, Jasmine's shoulders ached with tension. His resilient. She turned to find Dante standing in the doorway of Marcus's playroom. He'd changed from his morning suit into dark jeans and a black sweater, casual clothes that somehow made him look even more dangerous. "Children are," Jasmine agreed. "They adapt to almost anything if they feel secure."
"Does he?"
"Feel secure?" Jasmine watched Marcus play with his toy soldiers, creating elaborate battle scenarios with sound effects and dramatic commentary.
"I think so."
He knows something's different, but kids his age don't fully grasp danger the way adults do. That's probably for the best. Dante moved into the room, keeping a respectful distance. "You look exhausted."
"I'm fine."
"You've been on duty for 6 hours and haven't eaten. That's not fine."
He pulled out his phone. "I'm having lunch brought up."
"You'll take an hour break while I watch Marcus."
"I don't need."
It wasn't a request.
His tone gentled.
"You can't protect him if you're running on empty. Trust me to keep him safe for 60 minutes. The word trust hung between them. Jasmine realized with a start that she did trust him, at least with Marcus. Whatever else Dante Delacroix was, he loved his son completely. "All right," she said. 1 hour. She ate in her suite, forcing down food her nervous stomach didn't want. The file folders sat on her coffee table, reminding her of everything at stake. 3 families wanted Dante gone. Any one of them would kill Marcus without hesitation if it served their purposes. How was she supposed to prevent that? She was a nurse, not a bodyguard. But she'd saved Marcus once by seeing what others missed. Maybe that was enough. Maybe staying alert, staying vigilant, staying committed was all she could do. A knock interrupted her spiral. Jasmine opened the door to find a woman in her 50s standing in the hallway, petite, elegant, with silver-streaked dark hair and eyes that held both warmth and assessment. "You must be Jasmine," the woman said with a slight Italian accent.
"I'm Maria Delacroix.
Dante's mother."
Jasmine's mind went blank.
Dante's mother. The file folders had mentioned her briefly, widow of the previous boss, matriarch of the family, living in a separate estate in Westchester.
She hadn't expected to meet her so soon. "Mrs. Delacroix," Jasmine managed.
"It's nice to meet you. Please, call me Maria." She smiled, but her eyes continued their assessment.
"May I come in?"
"I'd like to talk to you about my grandson." Jasmine stepped aside, acutely aware of her casual clothes and half-eaten lunch. Maria moved into the suite with the confidence of someone comfortable in expensive spaces.
She settled onto the couch with perfect posture.
"My son tells me you saved Marcus's life," Maria said without preamble. "I diagnosed his condition. The doctors treated him." "Don't diminish what you did." Maria's expression was sharp. "I read the hospital reports. Those doctors would have run tests for another hour while Marcus died. You saw what they missed and you refused to stay silent. That took courage." Jasmine sat in the chair across from her, unsure how to respond. "I also understand Dante has offered you a position as Marcus's primary caregiver," Maria continued. "With significant compensation and responsibility." "Yes,
"And you accepted?"
I did." Maria leaned forward slightly. "Why?"
The question felt like a test. Jasmine chose her words carefully. Because Marcus needs someone who sees him as a person, not a security problem. Because I have skills that can keep him safe in ways bodyguards can't. And because, she hesitated, then decided on honesty, because in 3 months, he's become important to me. Not because of the money. The money helps, Jasmine admitted. I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But if that's all I cared about, there are easier ways to earn a good salary than living in constant fear that someone's going to try to kill a 6-year-old. Maria's expression softened. You're afraid. Terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Maria pulled a small jewelry box from her purse and set it on the coffee table. This belonged to my mother. She gave it to me when I married Dante's father. I'm giving it to you now. Jasmine opened the box. Inside was a simple gold medal on a delicate chain. Saint Rita, the patron saint of impossible causes. I don't understand, Jasmine whispered. My mother wore this through 32 years of marriage to a dangerous man. I wore it through 28 years before my husband was killed. It won't stop bullets or prevent poison. Maria's eyes held ancient wisdom and deep grief. But it reminds you that you're not alone. That women have been protecting children in this world for generations. Jasmine felt tears burn behind her eyes. Mrs. Delacroix, Maria, I don't know if I can do this. You can. You already have. Maria stood, moving to the door. But understand something, Jasmine. My son is a good man in many ways, but he's also a hard man. He lives in a world where trust is rare and betrayal is common. The fact that he's giving you this level of responsibility means he sees something in you worth protecting. I don't understand what you mean. Maria smiled, sad and knowing. You will. After she left, Jasmine sat holding the saint's medal, feeling the weight of expectations and history and impossible causes. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dante. Marcus is asking for you. Story time. Jasmine pocketed the medal and headed back to her job, protecting a child from monsters while trying not to become one herself. 6 weeks after accepting her new role, Jasmine stood in Dante's office at 2 a.m, still wearing her pajamas, her heart pounding against her ribs. Say that again, she said, voice tight. Dante sat behind his desk, tie loosened, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Behind him stood Luca, his head of security, and 2 other men Jasmine recognized from the protective detail. Someone breached the building's security system, Dante repeated with forced calm. They accessed the camera feeds for approximately 8 minutes before we detected the intrusion and locked them out. Which cameras? Marcus's room. The playroom. The kitchen. The main hallway on this floor. His jaw tightened. They were mapping his routine, learning his schedule, identifying vulnerabilities. Jasmine's blood went cold. For 6 weeks, she'd been vigilant, testing every meal, examining every toy, supervising every interaction. She thought they were safe here, 40 stories above the city, surrounded by security and bulletproof glass. She'd been wrong. Who was it? She asked. We're working on that. Lucas stepped forward, his expression grim. He was ex-military, built like a tank, with the kind of face that suggested he'd seen things most people couldn't imagine. The breach came from outside the building, sophisticated encryption. Either the Castellanos hired someone very good, or it's Katia Volkov. Dante's voice was flat. She's been too quiet lately. That always means she's planning something. Jasmine thought about the files she'd memorized. Katia Volkov, 38 years old, former Russian intelligence before she'd taken over her father's organization. Known for patience, strategic thinking, and attacks that seemed to come from nowhere because she planned them months in advance. What do we do? Jasmine asked. We increase security protocols immediately. Dante pulled up a document on his laptop. No one enters this floor without biometric verification and physical search. All food deliveries get inspected off-site before they enter the building. Marcus doesn't leave the penthouse until we've identified and neutralized the threat. He's 6 years old, Jasmine protested. You can't keep him locked up here indefinitely. He needs fresh air, socialization, normal experiences. Normal doesn't exist for him. Dante's tone was sharp. It never will. The sooner he learns that, the better. He's a child, not a prisoner. He's a target. Dante stood, planting his palms on the desk. And I will not bury my son because I prioritized his happiness over his survival.
The room went silent. Jasmine could feel the other men watching this confrontation with carefully neutral expressions. She knew she should back down, defer to Dante's authority, remember her place. But Marcus's face flashed through her mind. The way he'd laughed yesterday when they'd built a blanket fort, the way he'd asked if they could go to the park again soon, the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his friend from the building's gym who'd invited him to a birthday party next month. There has to be a middle ground, Jasmine said, forcing her voice steady. Between complete exposure and total isolation. There isn't. Dante moved around the desk, stopping inches from her. Up close, she could see the fear beneath his anger, the desperation of a father who'd already lost one person he loved and refused to lose another. I know you care about him. I know you want him to have a childhood. But none of that matters if he's dead. And what kind of life is he living if he's too terrified to experience it? A life where he wakes up breathing every morning. That's enough. Is it? Jasmine challenged. Is that really all you want for him? To survive but never live? Dante's eyes flashed dangerously. You're overstepping. You hired me to protect him completely. That includes his mental health, his emotional development, his sense of security and normalcy. Locking him in a penthouse prison will damage him in ways no assassination attempt can. Get out. The words hit like a slap. Jasmine felt the other men shift uncomfortably. Dante, Lucas started. I said get out. Dante's voice was absolutely controlled now, which made it worse. All of you. I need to think. Jasmine left, her hands shaking with anger and fear and something else she couldn't name. She walked blindly through the penthouse until she found herself in the playroom, surrounded by Marcus's toys and drawings and all the evidence of a childhood trying desperately to be normal. She sank onto the floor and let the tears come. An hour later, a knock sounded at the playroom door. Jasmine wiped her face quickly, but it was too late. Dante had already seen. He stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets, looking more uncertain than she'd ever witnessed. May I come in? Jasmine nodded, not trusting her voice. Dante moved into the room slowly, like he was approaching something fragile. He sat on the floor across from her, his expensive suit incongruous among the Lego sets and stuffed animals. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I shouldn't have dismissed you like that. You were scared. I understand. That's not an excuse. He picked up one of Marcus's toy soldiers, turning it over in his hands. When the security breach happened, all I could see was Marcus dying. All I could think about was failing him the way I failed. He stopped abruptly. The way you failed who? Jasmine asked gently. Dante was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my brother. Antonio. He was 23 when the Castellanos killed him. 7 years ago. Jasmine's breath caught. The files hadn't mentioned a brother. Antonio wasn't supposed to be in the business, Dante continued, his voice rough with old pain. He wanted to be a teacher. Taught history at a high school in Brooklyn, coached the debate team, had a girlfriend he was planning to propose to. He was good. Better than me in every way that mattered. What happened? Victor Castellano wanted to send me a message. Wanted to show me what happened to people who challenged his territory. So he took Antonio. Dante's hands tightened around the toy soldier. Kept him for 3 days. Made sure I knew exactly what they were doing to him. Then delivered his body to my doorstep with a note that said, next time, it'll be someone you can't replace. Jesus, Jasmine whispered. I rebuilt my entire organization after that. Made it stronger, more ruthless, impossible to attack without massive retaliation. I thought I'd learned the lesson. Protect what matters most, eliminate threats before they materialize, never show weakness. He looked up at her, and his eyes were haunted. Then Marcus was born and I realized I'd created a prison for him. Every precaution I took to keep him safe also kept him isolated. Every threat I neutralized spawned 2 more. And the harder I fought to protect him, the more danger he attracted. Jasmine moved closer, sitting beside him. You're trying to control something that can't be controlled. I know. But what's the alternative? Let him run around unprotected? Wait for the next assassination attempt and hope I'm fast enough to stop it. No. But you can't let fear make you forget that he needs more than physical safety. He needs connection, joy, purpose. He needs to know that life is worth living, even when it's dangerous. She took the toy soldier from Dante's hands, setting it gently on the floor. Your brother, Antonio, do you think he regretted his life? Even though it ended too soon?
No. He loved teaching. Loved his students.
Said he'd rather have 20 good years making a difference than 80 years playing it safe.
Then honor that.
Let Marcus have the best childhood possible, even if it's not a normal one. Give him guards and security protocols, but also give him birthday parties and playground visits and friends. Help him build a life that's worth protecting, not just a survival routine. Dante studied her face for a long moment. How did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just a nurse who refuses to watch another child suffer when there's something I can do about it.
You're more than that.
His hand came up slowly, cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness.
You're the bravest person I've ever met.
And I'm an idiot for almost pushing you away.
Jasmine's breath hitched.
They were too close, the air between them charged with something dangerous and inevitable. She should pull back, maintain professional distance, remember all the reasons this couldn't happen. Instead, she leaned into his touch. Dante.
I know, he said quietly. This is complicated. You work for me.
My life is dangerous. Getting close to me puts you at risk. All the logical reasons this is a terrible idea. Then why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense?
His thumb brushed across her cheekbone.
Because sometimes the heart is smarter than the head. He kissed her then, soft and careful, like she was something precious he was afraid to break. Jasmine's hands came up to his shoulders, fingers tangling in the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer despite every warning screaming in her brain. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers.
I can't promise you safety. Can't promise you normal.
Can't even promise you tomorrow. I'm not asking for promises. Jasmine's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I'm just asking for honesty, and maybe a chance to see where this goes.
Even knowing what I am?
What I do. I've read the files, Dante. I know exactly who you are.
She pulled back enough to meet his eyes.
And I'm choosing to stay anyway. Something in his expression cracked, relief and wonder and desperate hope mixing together. He kissed her again, deeper this time, months of tension finally releasing. They stayed there on the playroom floor, surrounded by evidence of childhood innocence, acknowledging the impossible thing growing between them. The security breach turned out to be exactly what Dante feared, Katia Volkov making a move. 2 days after the camera incident, one of Dante's informants delivered intelligence that Katia had contracted with a team of specialists. Not soldiers or enforcers, but people who excelled at getting close, earning trust, and striking from inside. She's not going for a direct assault, Luca explained during the emergency briefing. She's planning infiltration. Someone who can get into Marcus's daily life, gain access, and wait for the perfect moment.
Jasmine felt sick.
You're saying she's trying to plant someone in this household?
Or already has.
Dante's expression was granite. We're running background checks on every person who's had contact with Marcus in the past 6 months. Staff, delivery people, tutors, the maintenance crew, everyone. That's dozens of people.
I know. But we can't afford to miss anyone.
The investigation took 3 days. 3 days of mounting paranoia, where every interaction felt potentially dangerous, where Jasmine found herself second-guessing people she'd known for months. The tutor who'd seemed so patient, was she real or a plant? The security guard who always smiled at Marcus, was he genuine or gathering information? By the 3rd day, Jasmine was exhausted from hypervigilance. She'd barely slept, afraid that closing her eyes meant missing something crucial. Marcus noticed, asked why she looked so tired, why she kept staring at people, why everything felt different. Just some extra safety measures, she'd told him, hating how hollow the words sounded.
The answer came on day 4.
Jasmine was supervising Marcus's lunch when Dante appeared in the kitchen doorway, his face a mask she couldn't read.
Jasmine. My office. Now. Her stomach dropped. She asked one of the security team to watch Marcus and followed Dante to his office.
Luca was already there, along with a woman Jasmine had never seen before, mid-30s, severe expression, holding a tablet. This is Sarah Chen, Dante said without preamble. She runs background investigations for my organization. Sarah, show her.
Sarah turned the tablet toward Jasmine.
On screen was a photo of Elena Rodriguez, Marcus's tutor for the past 4 months. A woman Jasmine had worked with daily, trusted completely, liked genuinely. Elena Rodriguez isn't her real name, Sarah said. It's Yelena Rostova. She's FSB, Russian Federal Security Service. Came to the US 2 years ago and established a cover identity as a children's education specialist. 6 months ago, Katia Volkov personally recruited her.
The room spun. No.
Elena is, she's wonderful with Marcus. She's patient and creative and he adores her. She's also a trained intelligence operative who's been documenting Marcus's routines, photographing the penthouse layout, and reporting everything back to Volkov. Dante's voice was cold fury barely contained. We intercepted her latest communication 2 hours ago. She was preparing for extraction, planning to kidnap Marcus during tomorrow's lesson and deliver him to Volkov's people.
Jasmine gripped the desk to stay upright. Elena.
Sweet, enthusiastic Elena who made learning fun, who always remembered Marcus's favorite snacks, who'd spent hours helping him with a history project about ancient Rome.
Elena had been planning to kidnap him.
Where is she now?
Jasmine managed.
In a secure location being questioned. The way Dante said questioned made Jasmine's blood run cold. She'll provide information about Volkov's operation. Then she'll disappear.
Disappear, Jasmine repeated numbly. She tried to take my son. Dante's eyes were absolutely merciless.
I'm being merciful by making it quick. Jasmine wanted to argue, wanted to say this was wrong, wanted to insist there had to be another way. But the professional part of her brain, the part that had read the files and understood the stakes, knew that Elena Rostova had made her choice. Had chosen to help murder a 6-year-old child for money or ideology or whatever motivated people who did this kind of work. What do we tell Marcus? She asked instead. That Elena had to leave suddenly for a family emergency. That we'll find him a new tutor.
Dante moved to the window, shoulders rigid. He'll be upset.
But that's better than knowing the truth. He's going to ask questions. Then we lie.
Better lies than nightmares. Sarah packed up her tablet and left. Luca followed after a brief exchange with Dante in Italian. Jasmine stayed, processing the magnitude of what they'd just escaped. How long? She asked quietly.
How long was Elena here before you suspected her? 4 months. She passed every background check, every security screening. Her cover identity was perfect. Dante turned to face her, and the exhaustion in his eyes was devastating.
She fooled everyone.
Could have taken Marcus anytime in the past 16 weeks. We got lucky that she waited for better positioning.
Lucky.
The word tasted bitter.
Yes. Lucky that I have excellent intelligence networks.
Lucky that Volkov got overconfident and let Elena communicate too frequently. Lucky that, his voice cracked slightly. Lucky that I didn't lose my son to my own blind spots. Jasmine crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him. Dante went rigid for a moment, then collapsed into the embrace, his face buried in her shoulder, his whole body shaking with the adrenaline crash of crisis averted. He's safe, Jasmine whispered.
Marcus is safe.
That's what matters.
This time. But next time. We'll catch it next time too.
Together. They stood like that for several minutes, 2 people holding each other against the weight of impossible responsibilities. That night, after Marcus was asleep, Jasmine found Dante on the penthouse terrace. He stood at the railing, staring out at the city lights, a glass of whiskey in his hand. You should be resting, she said, joining him.
Can't.
Every time I close my eyes, I see Marcus in Elena's car, being delivered to Volkov. See what she'd do to him to hurt me.
He took a long drink.
See myself failing him the way I failed Antonio.
You didn't fail Antonio. Victor Castellano killed him.
That's on Victor, not you.
I should have seen it coming.
Should have protected him better. You were 26 years old, barely in control of your organization. You can't punish yourself forever for not predicting the future. Jasmine took his free hand, threading their fingers together.
And you didn't fail, Marcus. You caught the threat in time.
He's sleeping peacefully right now because you kept him safe. We kept him safe. You were the one who insisted on thorough background checks when Elena first started. You're the one who noticed she asked too many questions about our security procedures.
Dante squeezed her hand.
I should have listened to your concerns sooner. You listened when it mattered. They stood in silence, the city stretching endlessly below them. Somewhere out there, Elena Rostova was being interrogated. Somewhere, Katia Volkov was planning her next move. Somewhere, threats were multiplying in the dark. But here, 40 stories above the chaos, Jasmine felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Not safety, she was too aware of the dangers for that, but the peace of knowing she wasn't facing them alone. "Move in with me," Dante said suddenly. Jasmine turned to stare at him. "What?" "Not just into the guest quarters. Into my room. My space. My life." He set down his glass and took both her hands. "I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But these past 6 weeks, having you here, working together to protect Marcus, falling asleep knowing you're 3 doors away, it's not enough anymore. Dante. I'm in love with you." The words came out rushed, like he'd been holding them back too long. "I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you stood up to those doctors in the hospital. Maybe when you promised Marcus you wouldn't leave. Maybe the first time you challenged me instead of just agreeing because I'm the boss. But somewhere along the way, you became essential. Not just to Marcus. To me." Jasmine's heart hammered against her ribs. She thought about all the reasons this was insane, the danger, the complexity, the fact that she worked for him and loving him meant accepting his world completely. Then she thought about the way he looked at Marcus with absolute devotion. The way he'd held her on the playroom floor after nearly pushing her away. The way he trusted her with his son's life and now his heart. "I love you too," she said, and watched relief flood his features. "But we do this right. Marcus comes first. His stability, his happiness, his security. Always. And you don't get to make unilateral decisions about his care. We're partners in this, equal voices." "Agreed." "And," she hesitated, then pushed forward, "if this doesn't work, if we realize we're better as colleagues than lovers, we don't let it affect Marcus. We stay professional, keep him protected, put his needs above our feelings." Dante cupped her face in his hands. "It's going to work. I don't know how I know, but I do. We're going to make this work because the alternative is unacceptable." He kissed her then, deep and claiming and full of promise. When they broke apart, Jasmine was breathless and certain and terrified and exhilarated all at once. "Come on," Dante said, taking her hand. "I want to show you something." He led her through the penthouse to a room she'd never entered, his private study. Inside, the walls were covered with photos. Not crime scene photos, organizational charts, but family moments. Antonio at his college graduation, grinning widely. Maria and her late husband at their anniversary party. And dozens of photos of Marcus, as a baby, as a toddler, at various ages, capturing every stage of his young life. "This is what I'm fighting for," Dante said quietly. "Not territory or power or revenge. This. Family. The people I love staying alive long enough to have more moments worth photographing." Jasmine studied the photos, seeing Dante's life laid bare. The brother he'd lost. The son he was desperate to protect. The mother who'd survived decades in this world. And now, impossibly, space for her in this dangerous, devoted circle. "Take one with me," she said impulsively. Dante pulled out his phone. They stood close, his arm around her shoulders, both smiling despite everything. He took the photo, then immediately sent it to print. "For the wall," he explained. "So I remember this moment. The night you agreed to stay." 3 days later, life had settled into a new rhythm. Marcus adjusted to his new tutor, a retired army sergeant named Patricia who'd been thoroughly vetted and had no connections to any of Dante's enemies. He asked about Elena once, accepted the family emergency explanation, and moved on with the resilience of childhood. Jasmine moved her belongings into Dante's room. The first night she slept there, wrapped in his arms, felt both thrilling and terrifying. They were really doing this. Building something real in the middle of chaos. But the peace didn't last. It never did. Jasmine was reviewing Marcus's school curriculum when Luca appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. "We have a problem," he said. 10 minutes later, Jasmine sat in Dante's office watching security footage from the building's parking garage. A delivery van had entered that morning, stayed for 8 minutes, then left. Nothing unusual except for one detail. The driver had accessed the service elevator that went directly to the penthouse level. "How did he get the access code?" Dante asked, voice dangerously quiet. "We're investigating. But that's not the main issue." Luca pulled up another video. "Look at what he left behind." The footage showed the driver placing a small package near the elevator entrance, then walking away. The package sat there for hours, unnoticed by security. "Bomb?" Jasmine asked, her mouth dry. "We don't know yet. Bomb squad is on their way." Dante's jaw was tight. But the placement is deliberate. Anyone using that elevator would walk right past it. Marcus uses that elevator when we go to the gym.
I know.
The bomb squad arrived 30 minutes later. They cleared the building level by level, carefully approached the package, and finally, after 2 hours that felt like decades, determined it wasn't explosive.
It was worse.
Inside the package was a stuffed bear, the kind sold in any toy store, with a video file on a thumb drive tucked into its paw. The message was clear. I can reach your son anytime I want. Dante played the video in his office with only Jasmine and Luca present. It showed Marcus in the park 3 weeks ago, playing on the swings while security watched from a distance. The footage was shot from an elevated position, a nearby building, probably, with a zoom lens that captured every detail. Marcus's laughter.
His joy.
His complete vulnerability. Then the video cut to a different scene. A man Jasmine didn't recognize, bound to a chair, beaten and blooded. The camera panned to show Victor Castellano standing behind him, smiling. You took my territory, Victor's voice said off camera. You embarrassed me in front of the commission.
You made me look weak. So now I'm going to take what you love most. Slowly. Painfully.
And you're going to watch every second of it.
The video ended.
The office was silent except for Dante's harsh breathing. When he finally spoke, his voice was absolutely void of emotion. The coldness that meant violence was coming.
Luca. Mobilize everyone.
I want Victor Castellano located within the hour.
Boss. Within the hour.
And I want the name of every person who helped him get that package into my building. Every security guard who looked away, every employee who took a bribe, every camera operator who conveniently didn't see anything. Dante stood, and Jasmine saw the transformation, the protective father disappearing behind the ruthless Don.
They all disappear. Tonight.
Dante, Jasmine said carefully. Maybe we should think.
There's nothing to think about. He threatened Marcus on video. He infiltrated my building.
He proved he can reach my son whenever he wants. Dante's eyes were black with fury. That's a death sentence. Victor just doesn't know he's dead yet. Starting a war will put Marcus in more danger, not less. Victor already started the war. Dante moved to his weapons safe, pulling out a handgun and checking the magazine with practiced efficiency. I'm just going to finish it. By doing what?
Shooting your way through the Castellano compound?
Getting yourself killed and leaving Marcus orphaned.
Jasmine moved between him and the door.
Think about what you're doing. I'm protecting my son. You're letting rage make you reckless. That's exactly what Victor wants, for you to come at him emotionally instead of strategically. Dante stared at her, and for a moment Jasmine thought he might physically move her aside. Then something in his expression cracked. He threatened Marcus, Dante said, and his voice broke on his son's name. Put him on camera like prey.
Showed me how close he could get.
How easy it would be to. He couldn't finish the sentence. Jasmine took the gun from his hands gently, setting it on the desk. Then she wrapped her arms around him, feeling him shake with the effort of containing his rage.
We'll stop him, she promised. But we do it smart. We find his vulnerabilities. We dismantle his organization.
We make sure when he falls, he stays down and can never threaten Marcus again.
She pulled back to look at him. Can you do that?
Can you think strategically instead of emotionally?
Dante took a shuddering breath. Then another.
Slowly, the cold calculation returned to his eyes.
Yes.
But Jasmine, Victor's gone too far.
This doesn't end with him in prison or exiled. It ends with him dead.
That's not negotiable.
She wanted to argue. Wanted to insist there had to be another way. But she'd read the files.
Knew what Victor Castellano had done to Antonio, to dozens of other people who'd crossed him. Knew that men like Victor didn't respond to mercy or second chances.
All right, she said quietly.
Then we make sure you survive to raise your son.
Deal. Deal. They spent the next 6 hours planning.
Not a reckless assault, but a comprehensive strategy to destroy Victor's organization from within. Luca coordinated with Dante's network, allies in other families who were tired of Victor's aggression, law enforcement contacts who could apply pressure through legal channels, financial experts who could freeze assets and cut off money flows.
By midnight, the plan was set. By morning, it would begin.
Jasmine checked on Marcus one final time before trying to sleep. He was peaceful, sprawled across his bed with his stuffed dinosaur clutched tight. Innocent and unaware of the violence being orchestrated to keep him that way.
She pressed a kiss to his forehead and whispered a prayer she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Then she returned to Dante's room, crawled into bed beside him, and held him while he fought sleep because sleeping meant nightmares about things that hadn't happened yet. "We're going to get through this," she whispered into the darkness. "I know," Dante said. But neither of them sounded convinced. The war against Victor Castellano began at dawn. The war started quietly. That was the strange thing about violence in Dante's world. It didn't always announce itself with gunfire and blood. Sometimes it moved like water, finding cracks, applying pressure, waiting for structures to collapse from within. Over 72 hours, Victor Castellano's empire began to fracture. His shipments got intercepted by law enforcement operating on anonymous tips. His money laundered through offshore accounts suddenly became visible to federal investigators. 3 of his most trusted lieutenants disappeared, not killed, Dante assured Jasmine, just relocated with very persuasive incentives to start new lives far from New York. Victor's allies began reconsidering their loyalties. Turned out nobody wanted to back a boss who was being systematically dismantled by Dante Delacroix's superior resources and strategic patience. Jasmine watched it unfold from Dante's office, reviewing reports and intelligence briefings while Marcus did schoolwork 3 rooms away, blissfully unaware that his father was orchestrating the destruction of a criminal empire to keep him safe. "Victor's down to 15 core soldiers," Luca reported on day 4. "He's pulled everyone back to his compound in the Bronx. Bunker mentality." "Good." Dante studied the building layout spread across his desk. "Cornered animals are predictable." "How's the perimeter?" "We have eyes on every exit. He can't move without us knowing." Jasmine spoke up from where she sat reviewing Marcus's medical files, routine work that kept her hands busy while her mind processed the careful orchestration of violence happening around her. "What about civilian casualties? That neighborhood has families, kids. Which is why we're not going in guns blazing." Dante looked up at her, and his expression was almost gentle. "I know what you think of me, what you think I'm capable of. But I don't kill innocent people, Jasmine. Never have." "Then how do you plan to end this without collateral damage?" "Victor has to come to me. Has to leave his compound voluntarily. And I know exactly how to make that happen." He explained the plan. It was elegant, ruthless, and targeted with surgical precision. Victor's elderly mother lived in a care facility in Queens, a place Victor visited every Sunday without fail. She was the one person Victor loved more than power or territory. "We're not touching her," Dante said before Jasmine could protest. "But we're moving her. New facility, better care, completely secure. Victor will think I took her as leverage. He'll come after me personally to get her back. And then? Then we end this. Face to face. Just him and me." "That's insane," Jasmine said flatly. "He could kill you." "He could try." Dante's smile was cold. "But I'm younger, faster, and significantly more motivated. Victor's 58 and relies on his reputation more than his skills. In a direct confrontation, I'll win. And if you don't?" The question hung in the air. Dante's expression softened as he crossed to where she sat, crouching beside her chair. "If I don't, you take Marcus and disappear. I have accounts set up in your name, documents prepared, a network of people who'll help you vanish. You'll have everything you need to give him a good life." "I don't want your contingency plans," Jasmine whispered fiercely. "I want you to stay alive." "I intend to. But if something happens—" "Nothing is going to happen." She cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. "Because you're not doing this alone." "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." "You need medical support. If Victor manages to hurt you, someone has to be there to stabilize you immediately. I'm a nurse, Dante. This is literally what I'm trained for. You're also Marcus's primary caregiver. He needs you. He needs both of us. Which means you don't get to be heroic and stupid without backup." Jasmine's voice was steel. "I'm coming. That's not negotiable." Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met." "You're welcome." They moved Victor's mother on a Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, Victor's people were tearing apart Queens looking for her. By Thursday evening, Victor himself called Dante's private line, the one only a handful of people knew existed. Dante put it on speaker so Jasmine could hear. "You took my mother." Victor's voice was rough with barely controlled rage. "You crossed a line, Delacroix. I secured her in a facility with excellent care, Dante replied calmly. Much better than the place you had her in. She's comfortable, safe, and completely off-limits to this war. Unlike my 6-year-old son, who you threatened on video. That was business. Threatening children is never business. It's cowardice. Dante's tone was conversational, almost pleasant. But I'm willing to resolve this simply. You and me. Tomorrow night. The warehouse district by the river. We settle our problems like men instead of hiding behind soldiers and proxy wars. And my mother will be returned to you unharmed if you show up alone. Bring your army and she stays where she is. Those are the terms. Silence stretched across the line. Then, tomorrow night. 10 o'clock.
You better pray you're as good as people say, Delacroix.
I don't pray.
I prepare.
The line went dead. Luca immediately started protesting.
Boss, this is exactly what he wants.
A chance to kill you without witnesses.
He'll bring people despite the agreement.
I know. Which is why I'll have people positioned around the perimeter.
Not inside the warehouse, but close enough to respond if Victor breaks the rules.
Dante pulled up a map of the warehouse district. Here, here, and here. Sniper positions with clear sight lines.
If Victor brings more than 3 people, we neutralize them before they enter. And if he brings a dozen, then we adapt.
Dante looked at Jasmine.
You'll be in an armored vehicle 2 blocks away with a full medical kit. The moment this is done, you come in and handle any injuries. What about Marcus?
Jasmine asked.
He stays here with my mother and 4 of our best guards. The building will be on complete lockdown, nobody in or out without my personal authorization.
They spent the rest of the day preparing.
Dante reviewed building layouts and weapon specifications with clinical detachment. Jasmine assembled a trauma kit that could handle everything from gunshot wounds to stab injuries to blunt force trauma. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind kept circling back to one terrifying reality. In 24 hours, the man she loved would be in a warehouse fighting for his life. That night, after Marcus was asleep, Jasmine found Dante on the terrace again. He stood at the railing, staring at the city lights like he was memoizing them. You should rest, she said, joining him.
Can't.
Too much adrenaline. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. This time tomorrow, it'll be over. Victor will be dead or in custody, and Marcus will be safe.
And you'll be alive, Jasmine added firmly.
And I'll be alive, he agreed. Coming home to you. They stood like that for a long time, not speaking, just holding each other against the weight of what was coming. Finally, Dante turned her to face him. There's something I need to tell you, he said quietly. In case tomorrow goes wrong. It won't.
Let me say this. Please. He took a breath.
These past 3 months with you have been the happiest I've been since Antonio died. You gave me hope that Marcus could have more than just survival. You showed me what it feels like to trust someone completely. And you loved my son like he was your own even though he came from a world that terrifies you. Tears burned Jasmine's eyes. Dante. I love you, he continued. Not because you saved Marcus or because you're good at your job or because you challenge me when I'm being an idiot.
I love you because you're you.
Because you see the worst parts of my world and choose to stay anyway. Because you make me want to be better than I am. You're already better than you think, Jasmine whispered. You're a good father.
A good man.
You protect the people you love with everything you have. That matters more than the darkness you think defines you. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of desperate hope. When they finally broke apart, Jasmine pressed something into his hand, the Saint Rita medal Maria had given her.
Impossible causes, she said.
Seems appropriate. Dante laughed, rough and genuine.
Yeah, it does.
They went to bed holding each other, neither sleeping much, both memoizing the feeling of this moment in case it was the last peaceful one they got.
Friday arrived too quickly.
Jasmine spent the morning with Marcus, determined to keep everything normal. They did math problems and read 3 chapters of his current favorite book and built an elaborate marble run that took over the entire playroom. Miss Jasmine. Marcus looked up from arranging marbles by color. Are you scared about something?
Her heart clenched. What makes you ask that?
You keep looking at your phone.
And you hugged me extra tight this morning.
That's what you do when you're worried but trying not to show it.
Too perceptive. Just like his father.
Jasmine crouched beside him, taking his small hands in hers.
I am a little worried about something.
But your dad and I are handling it, and everything's going to be okay. Is it about the bad people who want to hurt us? Marcus.
I know more than you think, he said matter-of-factly.
I hear things.
The guards talking. Dad on the phone.
I know people want to hurt him because he's powerful and they are jealous.
His dark eyes were too old for 6.
Is someone trying to hurt him tonight? Jasmine made a split-second decision. Lying to Marcus meant treating him like he was stupid, and he deserved better than that.
Yes, she said honestly. But your dad is very smart and very strong. And he has lots of people helping him stay safe.
Including me. You're going with him. I'm the doctor. If anyone gets hurt, I fix them.
Marcus thought about this for a moment. Then he threw his arms around her neck. Come back. Both of you. Promise you'll come back.
I promise, Jasmine whispered, praying it was a promise she could keep. At 6 o'clock, Maria arrived to stay with Marcus.
She pulled Jasmine aside before Dante emerged from his office. You love him, Maria said. Not a question.
Yes. Then make sure he doesn't do anything stupidly heroic. My son has a tendency to sacrifice himself for the people he loves. Don't let him.
Maria pressed something into Jasmine's hand, a small vial of clear liquid. Holy water. From the church where I married his father.
It won't stop bullets, but it helps me sleep at night.
Jasmine pocketed it carefully.
Thank you.
Don't thank me.
Just bring him home. Dante emerged at 7, dressed in all black, tactical gear designed for movement and protection. He had 2 guns holstered, a knife strapped to his thigh, and an expression of cold determination that made him look like a different person.
But when he saw Marcus, that coldness melted instantly.
He scooped his son into his arms, holding him tight. Be good for Nonna, Dante said softly. I'll be back before you wake up. Promise. Promise.
They left the penthouse at 7:30.
The convoy consisted of 3 vehicles, Dante and Luca in the lead SUV, Jasmine and a paramedic named Rodriguez in the medical vehicle behind them, and 4 additional security in the rear. They drove through the city as night fell, heading toward the warehouse district by the river. At 9:45, they reached the staging area. Dante's snipers were already in position. Jasmine could see the laser designators painting targets on the warehouse walls. The building itself was dark and hulking, all broken windows and corrugated metal, exactly the kind of place where terrible things happened in the shadows. Last chance to stay in the vehicle, Dante said to Jasmine through the comm system. Not happening.
She saw him smile despite everything.
Stubborn woman. You're welcome. At 9:58, a black sedan pulled up to the warehouse. Victor Castellano emerged with 2 bodyguards, the agreed-upon number. He was tall and silver-haired, moving with the careful precision of someone who knew their body wasn't what it used to be but refused to show weakness. He's here, Luca reported. Perimeter is clear. No additional vehicles or personnel detected.
Good.
Dante checked his weapons one final time. Remember, nobody moves unless I give the signal or unless Victor breaks the terms. This ends tonight, one way or another.
He stepped out of the SUV and walked toward the warehouse entrance.
Victor met him halfway, both men stopping 10 feet apart. Jasmine watched through binoculars from the medical vehicle, her heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her throat. Delacroix.
Victor's voice carried in the quiet night.
You're either very brave or very stupid.
I'm practical. You threatened my son.
That requires a response. Dante's posture was relaxed, hands visible, non-threatening. I'm giving you a chance to end this without losing everything.
Walk away from New York.
Take your mother and your remaining people and disappear.
I won't pursue you. You get to live. You think you can just dismiss me?
I built this organization over 30 years. And I'm offering to let you keep your life instead of taking everything. That's generous considering you murdered my brother. The temperature dropped. Victor's expression went flat and dangerous.
Antonio was collateral damage. Business. He was a teacher. He had nothing to do with this world.
You took him specifically to hurt me. Dante's voice was still calm, but Jasmine could hear the fury underneath. You could have come at me directly. Instead, you went after an innocent man. That's not business. That's cowardice. Watch your mouth, boy.
Or what? You'll kill me like you killed him?
You're welcome to try.
Dante took a step forward.
But understand something, Victor.
If you come at me tonight, one of us isn't leaving this warehouse alive. And I've got a 6-year-old son who needs his father. So I'm significantly more motivated to win than you are. Victor stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, harsh and bitter. You really think you're different from me? Think you're better because you have rules and principles? We're the same, Delacroix. We're both killers. We both built power on blood and fear. The only difference is you're still young enough to lie to yourself about what you are. The difference, Dante said quietly, is that I protect children instead of threatening them. I honor agreements instead of breaking them. And I don't murder innocent people to make a point. He paused. You want to call me a killer? Fine. I won't argue. But I'm a killer with a conscience. Can you say the same? Victor's hand moved toward his jacket. Everything happened at once. Dante was faster. His gun cleared leather before Victor's fingers touched metal. But Victor's bodyguards were already moving, weapons raised. Lucas shot one from the SUV. A sniper took out the other. The sound of gunfire cracked across the warehouse district like thunder. Victor stumbled backward, his own gun finally drawn but shaking in his hand. Dante advanced, his weapon steady and aimed at Victor's chest. Don't, Dante said. Put it down.
You'll kill me anyway.
Maybe. But I'll do it quick. Force me to shoot you now and I'll make sure you suffer first. Victor's hand trembled. Then, impossibly, he lowered the gun. It clattered to the ground. Where's my mother? He asked, voice defeated. Safe. Like I promised. Dante pulled out his phone with his free hand, never taking his eyes off Victor. He made a call, speaking rapidly. Then he pocketed the phone. She'll be returned to her facility within the hour. You'll leave New York tonight. If I see you or any of your people in this city again, the next bullet won't be a warning. You're letting me live. I'm letting you leave. There's a difference. Dante's expression was granite. Take your mother and go. Build a new life somewhere far from here. And pray we never meet again. Victor picked up his gun slowly, holstered it, and walked back to his car. He paused before getting in, looking back at Dante. You're making a mistake, he said. Mercy is weakness in our world. Then maybe it's time for our world to change. Victor drove away. Dante stood there for another minute, making sure no one was doubling back for a surprise attack. Then he finally lowered his weapon and turned toward the vehicles. Jasmine was already out of the medical SUV, running toward him. She crashed into him hard enough to almost knock him over, her arms wrapping around his neck, tears streaming down her face. You're alive, she said against his shoulder. You're alive, you're alive, you're alive. I'm alive. He held her tight, one hand in her hair, the other pressed against her back. I told you I'd come home to you. You let him go. I did. Why? Dante pulled back enough to look at her, and his eyes held something she'd never seen before. Hope. Real, genuine hope. Because Marcus is going to grow up in a world where I make the rules. And I want him to know that his father chose mercy when he could have chosen revenge. That strength doesn't always mean violence. That being powerful means having options and choosing the right one. He cupped her face gently. You were right. He needs to see me as more than just a killer. So I'm going to try to be more. Jasmine kissed him, hard and fierce and full of relief and love and pride. Around them, Dante's security team was securing the perimeter and checking for threats. But for this moment, they were just two people who'd survived the night. Come on, Dante said finally. Let's go home to our son. Our son. The words settled over Jasmine like a blessing and a responsibility. Marcus wasn't hers by blood or law, but he was hers in every way that mattered. And she'd protect him with everything she had for as long as she lived. They drove back through the city, Jasmine's hand locked with Dante's the entire way. When they reached the penthouse, Maria met them at the door. He wouldn't sleep until you came home, she said. Claimed he wasn't tired. They found Marcus in his bedroom, fighting to keep his eyes open, his stuffed dinosaur clutched against his chest. When he saw Dante, his face lit up. Papa, you came back. Of course I did. I promised, didn't I? Dante scooped him up, carrying him to bed. And I always keep my promises. Did you stop the bad man? Yes. He won't bother us anymore. Did you have to hurt him? Dante paused, clearly weighing how much truth to share. I didn't have to, but I could have. I chose not to instead. Marcus thought about this, his small face serious. Then he smiled.
That was nice of you. Miss Jasmine convinced me it was the right thing to do.
Marcus looked at Jasmine, who'd settled into the chair beside his bed.
You're a good team.
Yes, Dante said quietly.
We are.
After Marcus finally fell asleep, Dante and Jasmine stood in the hallway outside his room. The adrenaline was fading now, leaving exhaustion and the shaky aftermath of crisis survived.
I need to debrief with Luca, Dante said. Make sure Victor actually left the city.
Confirm his mother was returned safely.
Handle the aftermath. And I need to check in with your medical staff, make sure everyone who was involved tonight is physically okay.
Jasmine paused. But after that?
After that, we sleep for 12 hours and wake up to a world where Marcus is finally safe.
Is he?
Really safe. As safe as anyone can be in my world.
Dante pulled her close. Victor was the biggest immediate threat.
The Russians are in a holding pattern, waiting to see how this plays out. The Moetis are too old guard to move against me without a clear opportunity. For now, at least, we have breathing room.
For now, Jasmine repeated. For now, Dante agreed.
I can't promise you forever.
Can't guarantee there won't be other threats.
But I can promise I'll fight like hell to protect both of you every single day.
I know you will. And so will I.
They stood there in the quiet hallway, holding each other while the city slept around them, two people building something fragile and precious in the middle of chaos. 3 months later, Jasmine stood in Dante's office reviewing the quarterly security assessment. Threats remained, they always would, but the landscape had shifted dramatically. Victor Castellano had indeed left New York, relocated to somewhere in South America according to intelligence reports. The power vacuum he'd left behind had been filled by people Dante had carefully positioned, allies who understood the new rules.
No targeting children. No civilian casualties.
No unnecessary violence when negotiation could work instead.
It wasn't peace. It was simply a better kind of war.
Miss Jasmine. Marcus burst through the door, waving a piece of paper. Look what I drew in art class. The picture showed their family, Dante tall and protective, Marcus small and smiling, and Jasmine in the middle, holding both their hands. Above them, Marcus had written in careful letters, "My family is the best." It's beautiful, Jasmine said, her throat tight with emotion.
Can we put it on the wall?
In Papa's study with all the other family pictures. I think that's an excellent idea. Dante appeared in the doorway, already loosening his tie. Right next to the one of you and Miss Jasmine at the museum last week. They'd started doing that, normal family activities under carefully managed security. Museum visits and park trips and dinner at restaurants where Dante's people had vetted every entrance and exit. It wasn't normal, but it was their normal. And it was enough. That evening, after Marcus was in bed, Jasmine and Dante sat on the terrace watching the city lights. It had become their ritual, this quiet time together when the danger receded and they could just be two people in love. I have something for you, Dante said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Jasmine's heart stopped. The box was velvet, the size that held rings, the weight of promises made and futures imagined. Dante. Open it first. Then decide whether to panic. Inside was a ring, simple gold band with a single diamond, elegant and understated and perfect.
But also inside was something else, a legal document.
Adoption papers, Dante explained.
For Marcus.
If you sign them, you become his legal mother. Not just his caregiver or his father's girlfriend, but his actual parent with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Tears blurred Jasmine's vision. You're asking me to adopt him.
I'm asking you to marry me and adopt him.
In that order. Dante took the ring from the box, holding it up. I love you, Jasmine Carter.
You saved my son's life and then you saved mine.
You chose to stay in a dangerous world because the people in it mattered more than your safety.
You've given Marcus the childhood I thought he'd never have.
And you've given me hope that maybe I can be more than just the monster everyone thinks I am. You're not a monster.
I'm not entirely a monster, he corrected gently. But I'm not a good man either.
I've done terrible things.
I'll probably do more terrible things in the future.
And I can't promise you a normal life or guarantee your safety or give you anything resembling conventional happiness. Then what are you promising me? Devotion.
Honesty. Partnership.
A family that's messy and complicated and dangerous but fundamentally built on love.
Dante took her hand. I'm promising that every decision I make will consider you and Marcus first. That I'll come home to you every night that I can. That I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of the choice you made to stay." Jasmine looked at the ring, the adoption papers, the man kneeling before her with his heart in his hands. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from a nurse who'd lost everything to a woman rebuilding her life in the most unlikely place imaginable. She thought about Marcus asking if she'd leave. About Dante catching her in the hospital after she'd saved his son. About choosing courage over safety again and again until courage became who she was. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes to all of it." Dante slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close, kissing her with desperate relief and fierce joy. When they broke apart, they were both crying and laughing. "Marcus is going to lose his mind with excitement," Jasmine said. "Good. He's been asking me for months when I was going to make you his real mom." Dante stood, pulling her up with him. "We'll tell him tomorrow. Tonight, I just want to enjoy this moment with my future wife." They stood on the terrace as the city glittered around them, two people who'd found each other in chaos and built something worth protecting. The wedding happened 6 weeks later in a small ceremony at Maria's estate in Westchester. Limited guests, mostly family and Dante's closest allies. Marcus served as ring bearer and took his job so seriously he practiced walking down the aisle a dozen times the day before. Jasmine wore a simple ivory dress. Dante wore a navy suit. And when they exchanged vows, promising to love and protect each other through everything this dangerous world could throw at them, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the officiant said. Dante kissed her thoroughly, and Marcus cheered so loudly from the front row that everyone laughed. At the reception, Maria pulled Jasmine aside. "You know what you've done, don't you? Married your son. Saved him." Maria's eyes were bright with tears. After Antonio died, Dante became so hard, so closed off. He threw himself into building his empire and raising Marcus, but he stopped believing he deserved happiness. You gave that back to him. You reminded him that life can be more than just survival. "He did the same for me," Jasmine said softly. "I was invisible before I met him. Just going through the motions. He saw me. Really saw me. That changes a person. You're good for each other. And more importantly, you're good for Marcus." Maria hugged her tightly. "Welcome to the family. Officially." The party continued late into the evening. Marcus danced with anyone who'd partner with him, spinning and laughing until he was dizzy. Dante's associates offered congratulations with varying degrees of sincerity, but the warmth in their eyes when they looked at Marcus was genuine. Even hardened criminals had soft spots for children. As midnight approached, Jasmine found herself on the terrace again. Different terrace, same ritual. Dante joined her, loosening his tie with a satisfied sigh. "Tired?" she asked. "Exhausted. Happy. Terrified about what comes next." He pulled her against his side. "The usual." "What does come next?" "We raise our son. I continue managing my organization while trying to be slightly less terrible than my predecessors. You keep us all alive with your medical expertise and common sense. We steal moments of peace whenever we can. And we love each other through all of it." Sounds perfect. It won't be. There will be threats and close calls and nights where we don't know if we'll survive until morning. Dante turned her to face him. "But there will also be this. Dancing at our son's birthday parties. Watching him graduate from school someday. Growing old together if we're lucky. Building a life that's worth all the fighting to protect it." Jasmine kissed him softly. "Then let's build it. Together." They returned to the party hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Jasmine stood in Marcus's new bedroom, not in the penthouse anymore, but in the house they'd bought in Westchester, close to Maria but with enough space for Marcus to have a yard and normal neighbor kids to play with. The security was still extensive, but it was hidden better. Normalish, as they'd come to call it. "Mom." Marcus appeared in the doorway. He'd started calling her that after the adoption finalized, and it still made her heart swell every time. "Can Sarah come over tomorrow after school?" Sarah was his best friend from the private academy he attended, a smart, energetic girl whose parents had been thoroughly vetted and found to be exactly what they seemed, normal people raising a normal kid who happened to get along great with Marcus. "Sure. I'll text her mom." Jasmine smiled. "Homework done?" "Most of it. I'm stuck on the math." "Let me see." They sat together at his desk,
working through algebra problems that seemed impossibly advanced for an 8-year-old, but Marcus had inherited his father's sharp mind. As they worked, Jasmine heard the front door open downstairs. Dante, home from whatever business had occupied him in the city today. Papa's home. Marcus bolted from his chair and down the stairs. Jasmine followed more slowly, pausing at the top of the staircase to watch father and son reunite like they'd been separated for years instead of hours. Dante scooped Marcus up despite him getting too big for it, spinning him once before setting him down. "How was school?" Dante asked. "Good. We're doing a project on ancient Rome and Miss Jasmine is helping me with research because she knows everything." "Not everything," Jasmine interjected, coming down the stairs. "Just a lot about history and medicine." Dante's eyes found hers, and the look he gave her still made her breath catch even after 18 months of marriage. "There's my brilliant wife." He crossed to her, pulling her close for a kiss that Marcus made exaggerated gagging sounds about. "Gross," Marcus declared. "You two are so mushy." "You'll understand when you're older," Dante said. "Never. I'm never kissing anybody." They laughed, and Jasmine felt the moment settle over her, this impossible, improbable, precious thing they'd built. A family forged in crisis and tempered by danger, but fundamentally rooted in love. That night, after Marcus was asleep, Jasmine found Dante in his office reviewing security reports. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her chin on his shoulder. "Still threats?" she asked, seeing the names highlighted on his screen. "Always. But manageable ones." He turned in the chair, pulling her onto his lap. "The Russians are focused on internal politics. The Moetis are retiring gradually. New players are emerging, but none of them are stupid enough to come at us directly after what happened to Victor. So we're safe. Relatively." "Relatively," Dante agreed. "Which is the best I can offer." "It's enough." Jasmine kissed him softly. "We've built something good here. Something worth protecting. That's all I need." They sat there in the quiet of their home, surrounded by evidence of the life they'd created. Photos of Marcus's birthday parties and school events, Jasmine's nursing certifications framed on the wall, Dante's business awards that represented the legitimate empire he was building alongside the illegitimate one. It wasn't perfect. It would never be completely safe. The danger would always be there, lurking at the edges. But they had each other. They had Marcus. They had this fragile, precious family they'd fought so hard to protect. And that was everything. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss any upload from us.